Hi everyone, and welcome to another session. Welcome to the session 2 of our operational build model, and I say a very big welcome to everyone. So let's kickstart. I think it will be good for us to stick to our good timing, right? Others when they join, I'm sure they will find their way around. So once again, a very big welcome to everyone, and let's pick things up from where we stop in our previous session. Okay, let me just stop my video sharing. Welcome to this session 2. In our previous session, which we had previous week, we started with a model template build, right? And we're able to build out our cover page, which is still like a work in progress because we still need to put some information in there. Then we went ahead to set up our admin, or the same thing as our control worksheet. And this is where we have the timing, the model style, self-style guide, and the general information. And this tends to flow into every other aspect of the model, especially the timing. We went ahead to also extract our financial historical financial statements. And now, just to reiterate this again, when you are dealing with operational type of model, right, and you're trying to get like historical information, this can be like if it's a company that has a lot of data, trust me, you definitely have to deal with a lot of data. So most times we tend to we tend to always move those client data because that's more like your sources of information. So we create like a section and we call that data source. So every data they send, we always make sure we put those workbook, those document, those information, we export it the same way and put it into our Excel. So most times you see type of operational model, the file is always a bit large, and that's why it is very, very important for you to be up when it comes to your Excel efficiency, right? There's no uh, other way to hit. Okay, so now we started setting up our inputs, and we started with our macro data, and then we went ahead to set up our calculation worksheet, and we said we're going to make this dynamic. So we're going to have our inside our calculation worksheet, we're going to have our income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. Then below it, we're going to have our calculations. Okay, then we're now going to have our output section where we're going to set up our financial statements and every other metrics are needed. All right, so I think that is clear. Now we need to also set up our output. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this calculation worksheet. Now I observe a mistake that most of us did, and that is very, very common. And that's one of the reasons I'm always keen on, you know what, you just need to build the model, build it on your own. So when I see some of the mistakes you guys make, right, and that's the only way you can grow. See, now when it comes to modeling, there's no two ways to it. You just have to build it now, which is also a very common practice. Whenever you create a worksheet and you create a name, maybe a name range, a name cell inside that worksheet, right? And you duplicate that worksheet, what will happen is those name range that you've created in that particular worksheet would also be copied into the new worksheet. And it becomes, so it's, the name more like becomes double. Then one become ref, the other one will be in the other cell. And now you start put in your formula and you make use of those cells, then you see circular reference. I know most of you sent a workbook and there was circular reference. So this is always good when you use a name range in a particular worksheet and you duplicate the worksheets. Always remember to go to your formula and under your name manager to check, right? So to check, I think I intentionally leave this as well. So you see, I also have that same thing. Okay, now I think because this was coming from the external, the historical workbook that I extracted. So things like this is always good. You check them just to keep your file to optimize your Excel documents. If not, uh, and then I saw some of you still ask that. So if I go to my info, you still have link to external file. So always remember to disconnect it, especially because we move that historical workbook, we move it into our own document. So please, it's always good. You always remember to disconnect it. Okay. So please, any question, just type in the chat box. Maybe while you are building your own, you observe anything. Okay. So now let's go straight into our calculations. And as I said, I'm going to duplicate these calculations, right, and put it under my workings, under my output, and I'm going to call this. So for our output, let's represent that with O, right, and maybe financial statements. Okay, I'm thinking maybe we can touch that later. And what we want is we want to create like a financial statement which they can view on monthly basis or annual basis. Quite sure something you guys will want to see, right? So where they just like a button. So if they want to view everything on annual basis, it's easy for them to view it. If they want to view it on monthly basis, it's easy for them to view, right? But for now, let's just create a financial output, which will be monthly first. Well, I think well let's take it a step at a time. All right. Let's take that a step at, and if you decide to want to create it separately, maybe on quarterly basis, quarter financials, we can do that. So, but let me call this and whole monthly FS, at least for now. So maybe from there we can now create have like a dynamic output which they can always, if they want to view it on monthly basis, semi-annual or annual. Okay, yeah. So I do not expect anybody to be in this session and be asking question on freeze panel. I'm sorry, you might need to go back to your basic Excel. Okay, so now let's get on. We've created our balance check. Now, one good thing when you are building this kind of model, because you are doing a lot, is always good we create like a check module, right? And I'm going to include that under our admin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this. Let me just try and duplicate this guy and put it here. And I'm going to call this our checks. Okay, so let's call this our checks. And let me just create like sample check setup. So check one. Then let me duplicate this. Times you can build a model where you have almost 100 checks. Trust me. Yes. So 29, 30. Okay. Yeah. So those are for checks. So we can have for checks, and we can also have for balance sheets. Okay. So now, so this part, just let me try and should we leave it? Okay, yeah, let's just make it a linked cell style. Then I come to this my balance sheet. I will just copy this guy because I need this format. Let me see. So when we create, let me see. Did we create any one for this? Okay, so this is for check. Okay, so it will be 2. Let me come back here. So we have one for check. So for the check, those would be more like hi, I can't see your screen. I can see your screen, but I can't see what you are doing. Okay, I guess maybe it's from your own hint. Yeah, I want to log out if your network is not that strong. Maybe that might happen. So this, let me limit the checks to 5. So yes, let me limit the check to 5. So this will be checks. Then I just add this additional section so that we can always include any one we want to link, anything we want to link. I said I want to copy this format, so I'll copy this. Okay, guy, just put it here. Right. Now can delete that. So let me, at least that should be 0. Still setting this up. Okay. So type equal to, then let me have, so I need like a counter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can just use formula to plus 1. So the first, let me put the first period as constant, so they don't need to change that. And this can count from there. So what I need there is equal to, if this guy is equal to 0, right, then you should make it 0. If not, you should give me this. You should give me the number, right? So anytime we have error, so they can always come sequentially. So assuming this is 0, this is 1. So that means error is coming from error 2, right? And we can see that. Then let me put this like, so this should be the current minimum error. I just want to set, so we are setting up our checks. This is always very good before you even start your model build. So as you are building, you can always check if something is going wrong, if something is not right. Okay, it can be dynamic with this. Just racking my brain to see the best we can come up with. So what I need here is minimum, mean, so minimum current check. Okay, so that will be equal to minimum of this. So this guy, now because I've created that hash colored range, and basically what I'm saying is, so if you want to include any other checks, we can always include it before this particular row, and that way our formula will take that in automatically. All right, then this will now be the current check error. So this will be minimum. So which means even if you have another error here, okay, no, so we need to use mean ifs, right? So it should be always greater than 0. So mean ifs, right? This criteria range, comma, then if you said that we expect it to be greater than 0, so greater than 0, I think we need to put this in quotes. And let me see, 0, right? So enter. Okay, what have I done? I know that will happen. Don't even need to put that in. Guys, what's happening? Criteria range. Okay, so mean ifs. Then this will be our criteria range. Then our criteria should be this. Okay. So you can see, and that's why most times it's always good as you are building your model, you are also doing personal check, because it's garbage in, garbage out. You do a mistake, you get the result of your mistake. So it's always good you also do that check. So current check, so equal to index. So index is just the name of the checks, then the minimum. So this will always give us this. But if everything is okay, right, this is what will happen. So we need to put this using our if. So if, right, this our minimum current check is equal to 0, then what should happen? Should just give us model checks okay, right? If not, open a dark quote, model error, then hand, then that will give us this guy. So let me go back to be sure that is working. Just creating a logic, be become 1. So yeah, model error checks 2. So let me call this, let's assume monthly model balance. Yeah, so that will just give us this. Perfect. So that's working. Somebody checks. Okay, so I need to also do the same thing. Now this is formula, so let me put this back to our normal. So that's for the checks. Then let me create one for the alerts. So this will be for alerts. I think we should likely have more. So let me add additional one to this. So at least for now, let's have like 10. Let me make it 15. So please, if you have any question, just type in the chat box. If you're not sure as to why we are doing what we are doing. Not for people that came late, please. Right. Okay. Yes. So this will become model checks. Now this will become alerts. So this will be for alerts. I'll even change the name. Okay. Then just change. So instead of model checks, this will be model alerts. Model alert error. Okay. So let me just call this guy. I'll create a name range. Let me copy this name range such that I've created. And I'll call this master check. Then the other one, I'll call this master alert. All right. So let me create that name for the cell. Come for the checks. So do the same thing. So which means I've created a name for them. And I can come in here and type. Yeah. So for the model balance, so equal to model. Sorry. So master checks. So checks should come first. Then this should be master alert. Okay. So we can even create like a conditional formatting so that whenever so alert if if it contain error, right? It should just so it should give us a light red field with that. Click OK, but let me check to be sure. Right, so let me make this one. Okay, yeah, so it should give us this particular format. Let me update it. So edit the row format. So maybe I want to make the font a bit white. Should I leave it red? I think font is white is good. And apply. Let me see how that looks. Okay, yeah. So it will just give us to just color that particular cell like this. So as I said, color usage is also always very important, and now we apply them. So put it back to 0. Everything is fine. Okay, yeah. So let me do the same thing for this guy. I think we can copy the format and put it here. All right. Let's copy the format and put it there. So let me put this as 1. And let me okay, yeah. So that's working. That's working fine. Okay. So what I would do is why are we creating multiple checks and not just balancing check? Okay, I believe that person came late. Sorry, I need to catch up with the recording. You guys should know that I always state the reason why we are doing something before we do it. So I'm sorry, I guess you came late. And if anyone in the chat can just help us type Alice, can help with the response, that would be good. Okay, so I'll paste that across all the sheets. So if I come back here to my admin, under my checks, right, if I put one of the check to give us error, one of the checks to give us error. So on all the worksheets aside the client data, right, so this will look like this on all the worksheets. It's easy to see that yes, something is going on. Please, if anyone can help with giving response to the question in the chat, that would be helpful. Okay, so I think we are good with this. So let me put this back to 0. Okay, so we are making progress. Right. Now we've created a balance sheet check. Okay, so can copy this, come to my admin. So that's part of our checks, right? Just type equal to, and I will link that directly here. Then for our checks. So now, because we have our checks in column F, right? I always like to work with that same convention. So what I'm going to do is, let me just move this guy, just move them to the right. So that's our checks. And I think it's one. So move it to the right so that, yeah, so that all our checks are also in that same column. So equal to, come here, just link that. And yeah, so that's how we're going to create that. Just put like a checks for our unit description. So this is very important as you are building the model. It's then make it easier for us to see what is going on. All right. So any question? So why are we creating multiple checks and not balancing checks? You guys were unable to provide a response to that. Okay, so the reason why we are so there's a difference between checks and the difference between alerts, right? So alert can be alert, right? It could be as a result, it could be intentional, like, okay, yeah, this checks means, let me give you for example, we can create a checks for our retained earnings and said retained earnings is negative. That throughout that, as anytime we have a negative retained earnings, we need the alert to show. So that does not mean our balance sheet is not balanced. Our balance sheet is balanced, right? But just that particular line item. So they are two different things. But if balance sheet does not balance, then that will show up alert, right? For example, if for let me look for another checks. So let's assume we decided to break down a line item and we do like a summation to add them together. So if they are not adding together, we could call that like a checks or still call it alert. So checks, we're keeping our checks to only balance sheet statements, right? While our alerts will be based on our calculations. So I hope that answered the question. Okay, yeah, so let's get on. I know some of you tried to do some calculations. Please don't let's be forward. Let's keep it to let's take it a step after one another. Now we're going to get started with our calculations, right? And here we're going to start with our revenue. Sorry, I think my screen sharing. Okay, yeah. Let me stop and share again. All right, so I believe you should see it now. So now let's go straight to revenue. Let's go straight to our revenue. Right, come to my inputs and let's go to our historical first and let's see, they've given us the breakdown of their revenue. So the first one, so transaction per users, total number of users, total transaction fee, then transaction fee income. Then the second one is membership. So let's take it one after the other. So one time, just copy this guy, put that here. Okay, so one time fee. Okay, let me be consistent. In our admin, did we use our header 3? Because I know we created header 3, right? So let me just use header 3. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, so header 3 for our revenue. So let's look at how they calculate that. So they have the transaction per users, then that gives us total transaction. So we need that. Let me just copy this whole thing, come in here and paste it like this. Okay, so transaction per users, that is in currency. What's our model currency? Let me remember. me see, did we create model currency? Okay, yeah, so we create model currency. So let's create, I'm going to call this guy a currency unit. Call it currency unit. That's for the USD. Okay, so because the transaction per user is in USD, so come in here. So currency, go to currency unit. Okay, then our users, that is in what? That is in number, right? So maybe you can put that as hash, and that will give us this guy. Then transaction fee. So now, another thing which we also need to be careful of is one, the units in which the client is providing their actual, right? And the unit in which our model will be. Okay, so because that is always very, very important, considering you having to update it going forward. So at times we can decide to keep the units just the same way the clients having their own, but at times their figures can be way much, and we just decide, okay, you know what, but it's always good we keep that in mind. So put this in model currency. We're going with our own 1,000. Then the transaction fee, so this will be in percent. We have a transaction income. Okay. So now, one other thing we need, let me check. So we need our timing and flag, because that's we'll be using this a lot. Our timing and flag, we're going to use that. So let me copy this guy and put it here. In fact, should we put it here? No, let's put it up. Let's put it up here. I'm going to put that up here. Let me check. Let me see. Because I want the financial statement to kind of match within those ranges. Yeah, so let me put it below. Let me put it below. Let me put it below revenue. Let's put it under our calculations. Right. Try this now to update. So I'm going to just call it timing call-ups. Okay. Then we're going to need our actual flag and forecast flag. Right. Let's call it flag or hash. Then let me call that up from our admin worksheet. So actual, then the forecast below. We have that. Okay. So any other timing call up, we always use that. Now, because it's going to be a rolling forecast, a rolling model. So whenever they have their actual, one is we expect them to always have it in this exact format, right? But it's always good. We find a way to make it flexible, okay? So that also does not affect our timing, does not affect our model. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create. Let me leave additional column here, right? So most time what we do is we can replicate the client's worksheet to recreate based on what we want, right? So that's always good. But for this one, I think we can still keep it like this. Can still work with this, and we just let them know. So if you want to update, we advise you keep this structure and the whole thing. So we keep everything here. Can reduce this column just to make it look good, right? And what I want here is this. So for the one time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this call-ups. Okay, so I'm going to call this call-ups because as you are building, you just need to think about that flexibility, right? So things I need transaction per users. We need the number of users for actual, and also the transaction fee. Do we even need? We actually don't need this for the forecast, but let's just put this ones here, right? So transaction per users. Please, if you have any question, always ask. Remember. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my index. Yeah, I think index and match should be able to work. But firstly, now combining index and match, because when you're also building your model, it's always good you, as a part of the model efficiency, let me do it the typical way, and I will see the other. So index, right? I'll come to my input under my historical, right? We need the transaction per users. Okay, so I will highlight all the range. So including we have created that stop, right? So which means my formula will extend to this cell. I can log the entire row, or let me just log the column so that I can always reuse the formula. Comma, right? Then I'm going to type my match. So match my current end date, okay, which I can keep the column constant. Match it in what? In the list of dates that we'll be having in this our historical worksheets, including where we put this our markup. Then I can keep this constant, comma, then give us the exact match, close the bracket twice. So this is always good. So in case they update the model, right, we don't want to link that directly. So it's always good we use formula. Now, this formula can be quite difficult to read, right? It doesn't kind of look smoothly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this match period ID, right? And instead of combining that both index and match, so which means any formula I want to use, because definitely any call up I want to make from that worksheet, from that historical worksheet, I'm definitely be repeating this match. So what I'm going to do is, so instead of doing that, I'm going to cut that match and put it here. So that match is standing alone, and any formula where we need to reference this guy, right, it will be easy for us to reference that. Just copy that across. Okay. So for the period that's forecast, definitely that will show us, that will give us NA. So now, one of also the corporate best practice is when we build a model, we try as much as possible to do without if error. Now, I know typically what some people would have done is to go ahead and type if error, right? It should just give us 0. Right? Now, when you are dealing with this kind of model, using of if error is not accepted, and it's based on best practice, right? Anyone want to ask why? Because there are some errors that you just don't want to happen that can be hidden under if error. So what we do is, instead of using that if error, or yeah, there are cases where you can still use, yeah, I think we still consider if NA, but instead of that, we make sure we kind of condition it to another line. So for example, I have my forecast period here. I have my actual. So I can come here and type, instead of using the if error, I'll type if my actual period is equal to 1, or is actually true, right? But let me, is equal to 1, then you should give us this match. If not, you should give us this 0. This is preferred. This is preferred to you using if error to wrap things up. So we want to see if there's an error, it should show it. Let's see what is really happening. Not that it will sweep everything under if error and turn it to 0. So that's also part of best practice when it comes to model view. So now go back to my index. So I'll just link this. So instead of typing the match inside here, comma, now everything will be referencing what? Will be referencing the match that I've created, and I'm going to keep that constant. So what happens is that's kind of a pause that keep our formula kind of keep our formula short. Now we're definitely going to have a spill because of this guy. So we also need to wrap it up with that if error, if with if. So instead of using if error, so tag it if my actual period, right, is equal to 1, then do the index. If not, at least for now, give us 0. So we are still coming back to update this guy. Okay, so we can see everything comes in only under actual. Okay, so this is also part of how we build that rolling forecast, so that as they're changing the date, even if the actual is beyond the forecast or is so things just tends to find a way to balance itself up. Now for the users, I think we have our users in which row. So users is in row 66. So all I need to do is just change the index number to 66, okay, which is correct. Okay. Then transaction fee, which let me look at the row for transaction fee, that's 68. So 68, just update this to 68. So linked, I'll put that in percent. So the same thing for this guy, also linked it. So this is always good, you break things down like this. So I'm going to call this actual call-ups, right? So this will be actual call-ups. Right now, for the forecast call-ups, which we need, we want to call this actual call-ups, then this will be the forecast call-ups. And we need for these three guys, hash, then this will be in percent. Okay, so now that we've done this, then let's go back to our inputs and let's create for the assumption for the revenue. So we're going to call this our revenue, right? And the first one time fee. Okay, so the major line driver that we need is these three guys. We put that here. Make sure I copy the unit. Okay. So now for this, now let me ask you guys. So what do you think we should do for the should we also call up the historical for the input, or we should just focus straight on the forecast? Let me hear from you guys. So basically what I'm saying is for the actual, right, we should just blank it out, or we should call up the historical. Okay, we should focus. Okay, so let me hear from you guys. So someone said we should just focus on the historical, or we should focus. Okay, let me hear from you guys. Should we focus, or we should also call up the historical here again? I think that kind of give like a trend of historical value, and they can do the forecast from there. Let me hear from you guys. We have almost 30 plus people here. So gotten 3 focus. Okay, let me hear from you other guys. Yeah, just type in the chat box at least. Okay, so someone said we should call up the historical. Okay, so at least kind of give like a trending view. Okay, so another person said the historical. We should call up the historical. Okay, so someone said we should focus on the forecast since there are different sheets already for the historical and input. Focus. Okay, so you can see, so it's very dynamic, right? There are times where we actually just want the client to be able to say, well, this is how we are doing historically, right? And from that point, we can see how we are going. So most times it also depend on the client. But yeah, truly you expect them to know their financials, you expect them to know their figures, right? So if you decide to call up the historical directly, for example, transaction, and I decide to call up, this is the transaction per users here, right? If I do this, um, it does not mean I'm wrong, right? So you could decide to do this, okay? So even though we blank it out, we could decide to to call it up, just to give them a view of, hey, this is what you had historically, and this is what you are saying you want to do in the forecast, right? So transaction fee. Don't worry, at least for input, there's nothing like left to right consistency. So that can still fly. So we could decide to, okay, you know what, to do this, right? But the truth is, by the time that changes without automatically flowing in here, the answer is no. So at least from the point where we are, yeah, we could decide to call this up, and we could decide to just focus on the forecast. So it depends, it depends, it depends, it depends. Okay. So now, this is now where, because when you are building this kind of model, right, you always work with your clients. It's not as if it's something you do and you are racking your brain with assumptions. No, it is client's headache. It is their home, because it's their management, right? Okay, so why is there no left to right consistency? We are using actual count. We use, yeah. So for input, at least any input worksheet you are building, input is not expected to be left to right consistency, because it's expected to be an input, right? But every other worksheet, you can maintain the left to right consistency. Okay, right. So, and which is why we've created that guy in here. You get, right? So yeah, okay, yeah. So that's why. But for him, so that's why we could decide that, you know what, we could delete everything historically and just keep up with the forecast. So what I'm going to do is bring this guy here. So I've removed the historical, but as I said, yeah, if you decide that you want to put it in there, we can go ahead with that. So for now, I'm keeping everything constant, right, on average. But historically, if you look at it historically, I think year one value change. So we assume at least maybe that changes is due to effect of inflation, which we are going to consider in our own model build. All right. So now for the users. So in fact, let's break it down so that it's quite easy to see the driver. So one, I'm going to call this transaction. So let's call this transactions. So just always good as you're building to make things clearer. And I'm going to call this users. So this will become users. All right. Now let's use our header 3. Okay. So let me see, what's the font of this header 3? My model size is 10. Okay, I think this header 3 should be 10, not 11. Should be a bit. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, I think that's better. So then for the users, now this is the users. So for the users, basically what we're going to do is, at least for the users, we're going to have users growth historically, right? So users growth actual, then users growth forecast. So because this just tends to give like a sense of what happened. So I'm going to put that in here. Okay. So now for the growth of historical period, let me see where we can calculate that. So that's automatically flowing in. Okay, you know what? Let's call the actual. So actual users. So we do kind of do everything in here. So actual users equal to, I'll just call that up from historical here. I think that'd be good. We also use that flag, but yes, at times it can be. This can be allowed, but right, well, you're allowed to do some things which might not be good. But so let's start from period 2. So current period divided by period minus 1. Put this in here in my percent. Then let me change it. Let me move it away from our block format. Okay, yeah. So because it's an input, so we are allowed to just block out the first month because it's an input, please. If it's inside calculation, we cannot do that. we link this here, and I think if you get to this period, it becomes 100%. But because it's an input, right, you can block this part for now, and because if they want to roll it up, definitely they will need to come back to the input and also update the input. So input will always need to be updated. There's no magic to that. Yeah, though I know we also have another style where we use and we say irrespective of where the forecast is starting. So which is now another approach that we use when we actually want to automate it. We are saying irrespective of where your forecast date is, right? Please let's get this right. So irrespective of wherever your forecast date is starting, right? Any assumption that you put in here will always represent the first period of your forecast. I hope you get that. So for example, I'm saying if they have the actual and then the forecast becomes June 2026, right? Because we've set it up, so if this becomes the first forecast period, right? That forecast data, the assumption we always pick this guy, what we have in here, as the first period and continue like that. So it will be this becomes currently this is in September, right? But we are saying our forecast is starting in 2026 December, which means this guy will become 2026 December, following like that upward. So we have that, we use that style at times, right? If we know that the client is lazy and not sure they actually want to be doing that monthly update by the time they roll up and the whole thing. So we can use that approach. Okay, I hope you understand that that approach of what I'm saying. Do you guys want us to do like an example? I know the Excel guru in the building already understand that. But anytime the forecast starts from, irrespective of the date, any assumption we put in here will always represent first period, and we're counting like that. Okay, or should I do an example for you guys? I believe you guys should understand that. Yeah, right. Okay. So there are cases where you might need to set up the model in that approach, and there are times. Okay, someone has their hand up. Let me. You don't want to type in the chat box? Okay, I'll give you permission to unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you, Victor. So this will actually change. Is it possible to just make it year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4? Then when we get the actual, we can then update to the actual months or dates.
Sorry, I'm not sure I got that. When you say we should make it
Hello,
year
Victor.
one,
Hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you clearly.
No, so can we make it year 1, year 2, year 3, or month 1, month 2, month 3? Then when we get the actual dates, years or months, then we can then infuse that.
Okay, not sure I'm clear with that.
You know, you initially said that the periods may change, right? So now, since we already have, for instance, 1st July 2025 now, we have 1st October. So can we just make it month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, or year 1, year 2, year 3? Then when we get the actual periods, then we can then impute them.
This will always be, so it's not as if we expect it. This will always be updated as they are going forward, right? It's a rolling model. That's why it's operational model. Which is why I was doing the second explanation, that when they have the actual and the actual move, they come back to the input to update the input. And the other approach which we use when we know that maybe this client might really not have that time to come back to input and be doing the updates month on month based on the assumptions, we use the other second approach where we are saying, oh, any assumption we put in this particular period, right? So which means the forecast period, we always pick assumption from the first set of inputs that we have and split that going forward. So you can try that. I think it's quite a simple thing to do, by the way, bro. I'm just so once you understand the basics, then you can always uh, improve on the dynamism of different approach we use just to keep things together. Okay, you guys should be able to do that. So don't let's waste our time. Let's focus on, on at least once you understand the basic, the rolling dynamism will be quite easy. Okay, so yeah, so for our forecast growth, so in fact, I think for this the users, so let me see, let me see this, let me see. Okay, so what I think is good, we do it like this. Just call up the actual. So that's the growth. Let me change the naming. So actual users, uh, users growth. So users growth, just call this users growth. They should be in the percent. This, so they should be in percent going forward. So let me just pick the average of the last 12 months. Average of the last 12 months, 4.3. Let's keep that 4.3 for now. Okay. So then the users are for, so these become users, and that would be the actual and forecast. Okay. So now I'm just going to use like my if formula. So equal to if my period here, all right, it is equal to 1. I think when we created this, let me see the actual we use. What's the formatting we use? No. So I think we should. It's better we use our flag. So what we're going to do is I think we should have this guy in here for our timing flag. I think we should also have it in the input. Yeah. So what I'm going to work smart. I'm just going to log the row. Just going to log the row, at least for these two guys. And I can copy it, come to my input. Where do we need that? I can just put that, maybe put it before this guy. Okay, so that's our time here. So now I can change this to equal to if my actual flag is equal to 1, then it should give me the actual. Then if not, it should give me previous period, right? Multiply by 1 plus the user growth. Enter, and that's we can copy that across for the period. Yeah, so that's quite intense growth. But yeah, so that gives us our actual and the forecast using that growth. So for the users, you just need to focus on the user growth, and for the transaction, we have the transaction fee. Okay, so I can come back to my calculation in here. I can just call the figures, up here. So transaction per users. Let's call it up. Users. Now we have the actual users and the forecast. Then the transaction. Okay, no. Yeah, and the transaction fee. And drag this. Make this a link sales style. We have this in our percent. Okay. All right. So one other thing we also need But should I call this timing call up, or I should just call this call ups? So any call ups we have, they just be coming from here. We need our inflationary factor. Have we calculated that? So no. So which means we step back, right? We need to calculate our macro data. So macroeconomic data. The first one we need our cost inflation. Okay. So I'm going to call them up. I'm going to call that up. They are in percent. So we have that call up. Then let's calculate our cost inflation. Then price inflation. We call this cost inflation factor. Then price inflation factor. Okay. So because they are on monthly basis, let's see. So now we also need to be able to determine, do we apply inflation on monthly basis or on annual basis? Let's discuss that, guys. Should we apply inflation factor on monthly basis or on annual basis? Let me hear from you guys. What do you think? Inflation on monthly. Okay, let me hear from you guys. Monthly, so we have option to apply monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annually. Okay. You guys are saying we should go with monthly. Monthly, monthly, monthly. Okay. I think there's a formula where we can actually convert annual to monthly. Can anyone help us with that formula? So even though, yes, we have annual inflation, we are applying that in a monthly model. Anyone know the formula we can use? Anyone? Can anyone help us? Remember, we are building together. You guys should not leave me alone. You guys should not leave me alone, because inflation is one interesting part of model build. So one, I think we need, let me call for a period in, I think we've created that in our input. So if I come to my admin, where is that? Did we create it? Okay, so I need to come back here and create that. Okay. So yeah, I'm still waiting for you guys. So can anyone help us with that? So here I need days in a period. So days in a period. In fact, let me put it up here. So days in a period. So yes, can anyone help us with that? Anyone? So this would be current dates minus previous dates. So let's give us, we can have this. And I can bring that here. So got days in period. So equal to, I'll come back to my admin, just call that up from the admin. Days in a period. I think we're supposed to, let's keep to our sales that I've created. So call ups. This is a calculation. This is a call up. Okay, so someone has given us, so period multiplied by rate divided by 12. Guys, help us check. Let's hear from you guys now. Why are you guys leaving us? Don't leave us hanging. Don't leave us hanging. Don't leave us hanging. What's the formula? Anyone help us with that? So let me check. So period multiplied by rate, okay, divided by month in the period. Uchenna, do you want to check that again? So let me see. Think, or maybe you meant 1 plus the rate, then raised to, think, should that be raised to 1 divided by month in the period? Let me check. And we have that monthly. Okay, no, not sure that this will work. Yes, guys, let me hear from you. Let me hear from you. What's the formula? We have annual inflation, and we need to convert that into monthly. Okay, inflation index multiplied by period. Let me hear from you guys. We are building this together, by the way. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? One thing is we kind of have a different approach, annual, then annual. Okay, then maybe we convert this into monthly first. Let me hear from you guys, please. Your suggestion. We need your suggestion, right? I know we have different approach that we use when it comes to these. So that will be equal to, then that should be 1 plus this guy raised to, I mean 1 divided, so basically saying 1 divided by this guy, which is okay, yeah, real. These are still annual, yeah. So which is equal to 1 plus, let me put this, so equal to 1 plus, I'm waiting for you guys actually. I know even most times when I'm doing my training, we usually spend a lot of time on this inflation factor. And you guys said we should go with the monthly inflation. So let's figure this out together. Let's figure it out together. Okay, thank you, Adigoke. So Adigoke is giving us 1. So equal to 1 plus our annual rate, right, raised to 1 divided by 12, month a year, 1 divided by month a year, okay, then minus 1. Okay, I'm not sure I put that correctly. Okay, so equal to, let's try this again. At least we are building together, right? I don't want to be the saying it all. So open the brackets. So 1 plus, I know we have economics guys in the building, right? Yeah. So 1 plus inflation rate, annual inflation rate raised to 1. I think that should be open the bracket, right? Raised to 1 divided by months a year. Okay. Then minus 1. So if I drag that across, yeah, so because everything is the same, so at least. Okay. So to get the monthly, let me see what others are doing here. So inflation rate multiply by. Okay, so we have, I think we have like 3 method that we use when it comes to the monthly inflation rate. But for now, I think let's go with what you guys have suggested. All right, let's go with that. Maybe I'll also look at some of the ones I did. There's some kind of interesting dynamism we also include this, and I can share with you guys. But basically, what we are doing is 1 plus our growth rate, right? Then raised to period. So that is if it's on annual basis. Okay, but now because we want to convert that annual into a monthly, so that was what we're saying, 1 divided by 12, right? Then minus 1. So and that's just tends to give us what we want. So if you are not minusing it, the 100 is going to give us like, which is like 1.2, but yeah, minus 1. So sorry, let me change this, the 12 to month, a year. So, and there's another one that first converts the annual into a daily rate. Then the daily rate will now be multiplied by the period in that particular month. But let's keep it simple for now, because I've realized that most training I always ended up spending a day on inflation explanation. So let me put this into decimal. Okay, let me just to be sure they are not the same. Okay, yeah. So it's always good you always cross check. Yeah, just rounding factor that is making. And then for our inflation factor, just be equal to 1 plus that. So at least for the forecast period, expect that to be like this. I think that should be, let me see, should we apply the growth? It's still basically the same thing. Okay. So what's this? Let me assume this is 1, right? Cost of previous multiplied by. Okay, so let's convert this into inflation index. So first, so if my timing flag is actual is equal to 1, then it should give us 1. So if not, it should make us previous period multiplied by 1 plus the monthly inflation factor that we've created. So check. So because I'm using this particular cell, I need to okay. So this like this, then that will give us our inflation factor. Okay, on monthly basis. All right. Seems the long. Let's go through a long route to get what we need. All right. So now for the transaction per users, then that will be equal to if our period. So we're definitely going to be using this flag a lot. If it's equal to 1, then it should give us the actual transaction per users. If not, it should give us the forecast transaction per users multiplied by our what? Multiplied by our inflation factor, which I'm also going to keep constant so that I can always reuse the formula. I can copy that across. Please, if you have any question, please let's ask. Let's discuss. You know, we also have great guys in the building, so we are building it together. I think that's quite straightforward. So basically, we are saying if it is equal to actual, right, it should give us the actual column. If not, then it should give us the forecast transaction per user column, then multiply by our inflation factor. Okay. So wait, let me see. I hope we are using the correct one. So we're supposed to use the pricing one, not the cost. Then for the users, so I think I can just, so equal to if, kind of use a lot of if conditional, but yeah, let's try to not use a double if. I think that's against the financial modeling best practice. So if this guy is equal to 1, then it should give me my actual users, right? If not, it should give us our user forecast. right? In fact, let me check something. The calculation we did in here, right? I think should we do it in this work? Yeah, most time it's always good where they put in their value and they can also see what the figures kind of look like. Yes, I would have suggested we do this calculation in the calculation worksheet, but it's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So equal to, if this is equal to, if my flag is equal to actual is equal to 1, right? Then it should give us the actual users. If not, it should give us the forecast users. We can have this. So if we multiply our transaction per user multiplied by the number of users. So because we are now using our own unit in thousand, I need to divide this by 1,000. Did we create 1,000 division? No. So I'll come back to our admin and create 1,000. I'm going to call this 1,000 division. Just call it 1,000. That should be like 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's name it 1,000. Have that. Then come back in here, right, and divided by 1,000. Right. In fact, now, which is also another thing, so that we always try to be very careful. So this formula that we've created, it is for our forecast purposes, not for the actual purposes. So, which means there are cases where their historical data might not add up. Okay, that should not be your own headache. Yes, we can raise that as part of the issues, right? But you always make sure that the same figures they have in their historical is the same thing that is reflecting in your model historically, even if things are looking differently. So what we usually do is, did we call up the total transactions? Okay, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'll call up the total transactions from the historical data. So total transaction. So yeah, the purpose is not for us to audit what they've done, right? It's just for us to be sure that they kind of reconcile. So yeah, so row 67. Okay, yeah, so we have this. So what I'm going to do is, so we also use this for a control account or the by ending balance. We use that. So we are saying, so if our timing flag, if it's equal to, I think I need to open another bracket. So if my flag, right, is equal to 1, which is actual, then it should just give me that total transaction from their historical. Then if not, then you can now do our own calculation that we've created. Okay, enter like that. So yeah, so even if it's calling the historical, you should still divide it by 1,000. I can drag that across. So this just kind of help with reconciliation, right? So that by the time you are doing your own outputs, the figures are not looking differently. Okay. Any question, guys? Any question? Any question? Any question? Okay, so let me use the same formula and let me call up our, so just copy this guy, then do the normal linking. So that's transaction fee, transaction fee. Transaction fee, put this in percent. Okay, and our revenue income, I also use the same approach, right? Anything historically, let's just focus on not changing their data. So which means I need to call up, that's our transaction fee income. Let me format it. Right, so make sure we keep their data. So let me check again. Self-review is always important. Then the transaction multiplied by transaction fee divided by 1,000. Can have this. That's quite tiny. Well, yeah. Maybe we just put it in 2 decimal to show what's going on. Wait, what's going on? How come the forecast is slow? Oh, see my formula. I'm not sure that formula is correct. Yes. So what's that going on? So that's part of what we call self-review when you are building models, right? It's always very, very good. So if my EF is equal to 1, should give me this guy there, but now that's not what that, so which means they should give us, oh, okay. So for that forecast, we are not dividing by 1,000 again because the transaction is already in 1,000 units. So it's only the historical that we are dividing by 1,000. Yeah. So self-review is always very, very good when you are building your model. So which means we've completed this guy, and you can see how interesting this this can be. Okay. So that's only for one revenue. Right. We'll just call this our transaction. Okay, now this header. We can copy the header of one-time visits revenue. So we have this. All right. So guys, any question? Let's also see if what we've created, if it's dynamic, because definitely we'll be leveraging on this to create orders. So our forecasts. So let's assume our last actual now move to 12th of December. Okay. Let's come back to our model and let's check what is happening in our model. Okay, yeah. So things like this is always very, very good. You test your model before you even go ahead and doing all the calculations. So now this guy is giving me if error NA, and it's because of what? So historically, there are no data within that period, right? So stop at HB and let me be sure the formula is stopping there. H start the same thing. So let's check. Let me check what is going on. Okay, yeah, which is correct. AB. Yeah, the column is correct. So now, basically, because we do not have that timing, we do not have data for this period in our historical data. That is why this is showing. So which means somehow by default, it is correct. Right? We just need to be sure, but we also need to be able to create like checks for things like this. Right? So that they will not update the dates. They will just go ahead and do some things, and they will now be looking for you that, oh, the model you built is broken. What have you done? And to now look as if what you've built is actually not working. So can you suggest one check that we can create so that immediately something like this happen where historical period end here, right? And in the date that you've imputed, you've actually not impute those actual. Can anyone suggest the type of check we can create? So immediately you have something like this, an alert supposed to be triggered. So can anyone suggest? So it's just we trying to think outside the box. Can you suggest what type of alert or what type of check we can create for this? So let's think outside the box. It's all about thinking, right? Like I said, build with me. So that's the same way I also sit down and think through it. It's not as if I have it stored somewhere. I'm following a guidance or a manual. So let me hear from you guys. Just type in the chat box the check that we can create to at least when something like this happen. Supposed to see an alert telling us that oh something is up somewhere based on the actual dates input here and the historical dates available. Okay, so we can insert a comment in the input and use data validation so that user would not input dates beyond what is available. I love that. I love that, but we should also remember that this is client data. So we might really not have much control because we can't limit them, right? But we just want to make sure that on our own side, we have something like alert to be able to tell them that, oh yeah, even though you've imputed this as your last actual, your historical data that we have is still limited to a particular period. Okay, so would it be possible to share the financial model with us after the class? We can study it further. No, I'm not sharing my model with you. I'll upload the video on my YouTube channel so that you can use that to update your own. Okay, all right. So what do you guys think? I know we just need to create a check to be able to see what's going on there. I'm waiting for you guys. What do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? So I think I can, under here, let me call this. I'm going to call this guy. Let me call this guy other checks. So I'll call this other checks, right? And here I'll put last actual date, last actual date input. So I'm going to call that up here. Okay. Right. Then now what I'm going to do is, so I'll put last actual date from client input. Right. So maybe from client historical input. Right. And I'll type equal to. So I'll type equal to max of all the dates, including that additional column that we've created. And that will give us something like this. Okay. So now my checks will be, so I will just put, so last actual date in historical input does not match actual date input. Okay, so, and I think we should be able to do that with equal to, if my input date, right, if it's greater than as long as it is greater, it could be equal, greater than this last actual date from clients, should give us 1, equal to, if not, should give us 0, right? Then if I put that in our check that we created, right? So that should give us an error. So that will become our first alert. That will become our first alert. So that should trigger up that something is up somewhere. So these are part of the test. As you are building the model, think about flexibility, think about the users, right? So if I come back here and I put my date back to, I think that should be August, right? Is it August? I think so. So that will disappear because now both dates are the same. Okay, so things like this is always very, very good. You look out for that to be sure that yes, everything is working. Everything is working well. Okay, so that's number one. We've created the checks. Let me still test it again. So if I put this back to December, right here, so the checks is up, which is very good. But the other thing is, even though if that is the case, right, our model should not give us if NA, should not give us NA. It should either give us something, right? Because this can scatter the whole model. So instead of giving us NA, you can decide to let's check. Yeah, so I'm just finding a way to not use if NA, right? But I think that's what we need to do, right? So instead of using the ifs, I'll just use if NA. So yeah, at times we try to avoid using it, but at least if NA is still better than if error, please. Okay, yeah, so this which will become another problem. So let me put it back, because now that is peeling. It's not a good option. Well, let's see. So I put in so if NA, they should give us 0. Yeah, so that should take care of it. So instead of pushing this NA, should just make it should use our if NA and just make it 0. Even we can even put like a state, but any text will kind of mess up the model, so which is not a good thing. So instead of it being messed up, it's better that the alert is up, right? And you can see the reason why we are separating alert from checks, right? So basically saying it's not as if the model is not balanced, it's not as if what we've done is not correct, but it's just because of that differences. So that's why checks should just alerts will pop up, okay, but the balance sheet is giving a different alert. Okay, so I think one of these our sessions, I will call on some of my colleagues that specialize in short-term cash flow, operational working capital model, right? And they'll come and share their experience. If you have any question, you can ask them. Yeah, so I already have 2 of them that are willing to also come on and just have a few presentation and share their knowledge. Yeah, on what building a working capital, and even we have what we call short-term cash flows. Short-term cash flow are more like a weekly based model, right? So you are not forecasting income statements, you are not forecasting balance sheet, you are forecasting only cash flow, and it is on weekly basis. So they call it rolling model, rolling cash flow model. So which can be very, very interesting. So I'll call them one of these sessions to come and share their experience with us. Okay, yeah. So if that's the case, so instead of it showing error, everything should just go blank, right? And it's because the users, she's making use of the previous user. But wait, the user is supposed to come in. Transaction is there, so why is users not coming in? Okay, so because we've used now, which is always interesting thing. So because we use that flag to limit this, so which means that would not work. So by the time it starts working, because there's no users here in previous period, that means that no user is coming up. The other thing we can do is to say anytime this is happening, you should just should keep the last actual users and push that forward. So instead of the model showing error, everything will flow fine. But most time it's also you sure you don't want to do that. So it's better the whole revenue is showing 0, and they can always go back and check the alert and see what is happening. Then we're saying, okay, you know what, if anything is going on, you should just pick this. So which means this 221 be constant for the actual period. Well, I'm not sure we want to do that. So it's better it shows in that regard. Okay. So please, any question with what we've done so far? It's can be very, very interesting. So let's try and complete the revenue. So what I'm going to do is for the second one. So for our second revenue stream, so they have those are paying on monthly, then they have those that are paying on annual basis. Okay. So let me copy this. What's the name of this revenue? So this membership subscriptions. So facts, because which is another good thing that we should have done. But let me also hear from you guys. So now, typically, when we are dealing with stuff like this, right? Yes, the actual is the actual, but at times we always like to break things down further, at least for the purpose of the forecast. And we are sure that yes, there's a proper driver for some line item. So what I'm going to do is let's assume we have like a base users, which would have been a proper approach, right? So let's say users, okay, then opening users, right? Then new users in the period, then we have deduct our churn users, and we have the closing users. Okay. I'm just at least let's agree if we should go back and revert to this approach. Okay. So which means we're going to have like a user schedule, which will now be controlling every other part of the users that we are going to forecast. So what this means is, so here I'm going to say if my period is actual, right, then she give us the actual users in that period. If not, for the forecast, it should just sum them up together. So I'm going to do it like this. So in fact, should we no, so not sum. Yeah, let's sum it up. Yes, let's sum it up for now. Now, for the newly added user, so I'm going to do equal to the same thing. If this is equal to actual, right, then you should do my current. If it's equal to 1, right, my current users minus my previous users. So now we assume we can't get information on the churn rate users. So just allow this to flow. So which means on monthly basis, okay, at least for now, so if it's forecast, it should just make it 0 for now. So not false. Okay, yeah. So which means actual, right? We can see that they add up to the total base users that they have. Okay. So which means our focus should not be on the total users. For typical operational model, right? Because those are more like different things they will. So as you are building it, you're also thinking about what we call scenario, right? So we kind of do a lot of mega scenario. So which means the model must be properly well detailed. In fact, because this most times flow into valuation, and valuation guys can be very tight and say what is driving this revenue, what is driving, how come you've not modeled new. So if they ask you that, oh, so what's the number of new users that will be expected to be added in the next 6 months, right? what is the revenue per user historically? How do you, so it can be difficult to be able to lay that out. So, but if you've set up, so you think about that ahead. So, because I said most times there are always kind of management in-house, then for transaction purposes as well. Now, so which means our main driver should now be what should be based on these users, which we need to properly uh, lay out very well. Okay. Now, why we can still make use of this. So let me check. So let's look at the number of users that is now being added. So for the forecast, if it's equal to forecast, then that will now be my new users, my current users minus previous users. So typically still repeating the same thing. And historically, we can, so going forward, we can see, let's leave first month and this other month, we can see how that's kind of flow in, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Then in our own forecast, we are saying they will get to almost like double digits of users that will be added in each month. Now, the question is, what will be driving that, right? Also, purpose of the model. Do you think there will be an funding that will be coming in to expand these users, or they look at the marketing cost? So 307. So these are things that actually help us to model reality of typical business. So most times, operational model might not be for a startup. Some other way could also be startup, but irrespective, because these are more like things the valuation guys will be looking out for. They'll be telling you that over the last 12 months plus, they've only managed to get a double-digit user. Double-digit user. So going forward, how do you think they will now be able to keep up with double-digit users to be added in every period? Will there be anything that will be driving it and things? So question starts coming in. But if you've not set it up like this, it becomes very, very difficult for us to be able to pinpoint it. Then for typical operational model, there's nothing like aggressive growth. Unless you are saying, you are bringing in a funding to expand the business operation. So it's all about question reality. So which means these are user growth that we've imputed here. Definitely, that's really on the high side, right? That's really, really on the high side because they're operational already. But yes, historically they could seems to maintain those kind of a good growth. But let me peg this to 3% and see what we have. So it's quite looking interesting. But as I said, so for now, why we've done this, let's go ahead and set up our model properly. Then we can always look at the outputs and be able to make some interesting decision. But with that, let me come back to my input and I'm going to add one key line item. So this is transaction fee. So under our users, I'm going to add churn rate. So I'm going to add churn rate. So we expect them to have historically, if they cannot be able to provide that for us, we just assume the ending balance as being added. So maybe we said 10%. Okay. So let me call up the churn rate in here. Churn rate. So there's our churn rate. So I can keep this up here. In here for our churn rate, so I just type equal to. So if my flag, right, is equal to 1, then since we don't have the actual 0, if not, my opening balance should be multiplied by my what? By the churn rate in that period, which we're going to deduct. So let's put that in negative, considering we've set our convention to always deduct. Remember we said the convention in our cover page or anything we are deducting, we just put that in negative sign. So yeah, I think that kind of give a good review. So if I let me to be sure that this makes sense, let me put this in a chart to see what that kind of look like for the peer. So you don't always expect to see some kind of aggressive growth, even though yeah, there will be a growth. So because typical operational model, you don't expect to see some reasonable, right? So you can see this, so, right? So one other thing we can do is we can now introduce something we call seasonality, right? So that seasonality just kind of give us like so it won't give us like something that just keep going straight. So which will also be the next thing that we need to do. So as I said, operational model, very, very interesting, and it's always good we mirror that same thing. So what will happen is that becomes our users, right? And I'll come in here and my users will now change. Okay, so I don't need to do that if or something. I just link that straight to my users ending balance straight. So now you can see a difference between you're building a typical normal straight model and operational model, because everything would definitely be questioned. So you must set it up where you include some interesting thing. I think this churn rate is quite high. I don't know. But at least yeah, we can always come back to the as I said, most times all these assumptions definitely getting them from the client themselves. They know their business the most. So you don't have to be racking your brain as to this or that or this. Okay, so churn rate, maybe I should just reduce that to 5%. So we don't even know what the output would look like. So should we include seasonality? Let me ask you guys. Do you think is there a need for us to include seasonality? So let me check. So for at least for us to see, let's look at the historical users. Right, let me check the historical users. So if you check the historical users, I will plug that in a chart, in a line chart. Let's see what that kind of look like. So historically, since they are so I think the business looks like it's still a growing business. So yeah, we could include seasonality, but historically seems to be moving quite well. Right, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 10, and we're saying to likely drop to 8 and stuff like that, then pick up again. I think we are not being nice in this period. So the first, so if they already got into 9, moving to 10, then maybe we should keep the next period up to 10 as well. So come to my input. So as I said, most time you don't have to really worry yourself about this. You expect them to give you this information, right? And most time when they can't provide the information, then that's where we make use of historical trend, historical data to so I don't think we should exactly. I think so. Let's leave that for now. I think we can leave I think let's leave seasonality out of this. At least looking historically, this seems to still be like a growing firm. Yeah, that would be additional work. Okay, so we can see how it is like. So for the second one, should we do it together, or I should allow you guys to go ahead and complete the second revenue? So I will, if you are going with that, I will upload this my own model so that you can continue. But I think you have your own model, so I'll just make sure I make the recording available, and you can go ahead and try your hand on building the second one. Or should we do it together? What do you guys think? We should do the second one together. Okay, so let's look at the second one. I think the second one also has like, let's see. So the second one has, so also just to remember, I think it will be good for us to state that these are more like active users, right? So that when question is coming in and they're like, what about these users? What about the base users? What about, I think what do we call them? AUM, right? Or what's that? We have this this name we call them active monthly users or something. I shall know we let's just call it active monthly users. We have one short abbreviation we use. But MAU exactly, monthly active users, exact. Thank you. So active users. Thank you for that. So that at least they are sure that yeah, this is what we are referring to, not the base users. There's always a difference between a base users and so monthly active users. Yep. So there's always a difference between the actual active revenue generating users and base users. So it's always good we state that clearly. Okay. So now you guys said we should do the second one together. So historically, let's also look at what we have. So net fee, that will be straightforward. Users. So we also have the same, we're going to be facing the same issue with users. But now funny good thing is they have for monthly and they have for annually. Okay. Or something like this. I think so if you look at so there's an error here. Or let me check. Okay, okay, yeah, okay. I think I know what. So 280 here. So which means it's just like a spreading. Most people do the subscription here, then they have additional subscription users and things like that and keep flowing. That's why January seems to have the high number. But let's start with the first one, which is the monthly revenue. Okay. So what do we call this? Membership subscription. So membership subscriptions revenue. Well, let me call this. So this will be monthly. This will be monthly guy. Do it separately. So monthly. So it's always very, very granular. So you can imagine someone building, and most times, in fact, they could be, so they are like a group you build for like a group. And you are building a model for each of them to the lowest granularity. They must provide all the information. In fact, at times, don't worry, I'll call one of them to come and just give us like uh, view on and their experience, right? I've seen the cases where they will even have like bank reconciliation will be done inside the model because it's the bank statement. They will need to get some data regarding the transaction they do, right? Have to pick up based on description to be able to say these are transactions related to this, and so it can be very, very interesting, right? Let me just put it that way. Uh, maybe next session I'll just try and talk to him if he will be free, right? And we can just have like a presentation. Don't worry. They are also international guys, so mm, so this should be currency units. So they are international guys. One is in UK, the other one is in US. So which is kind of very good, so that they can share different experience. Okay, so net fee. This is users. It's a linked cells. So let's call this actual call-ups. Then we need the forecast call-up. So just fine. I'm looking for a way to work smart. from, at least from the initial one we've created. So call-ups, what did we do for our call-ups? Okay, yeah, we use this our formula to pick it automatically. So that's 74. So it's always good when you are creating a formula, just think about you reusing the formula, right? So that can save you a lot of time, but it's better still, always review, self-review to be sure it's giving you what you expect. Okay. So let's go back to our input now to be membership monthly, membership subscriptions. So I think this one we only have users and net fee. So say we should not call up the historical. So let me work like a lazy modeler. Just copy this guy and put it here. So what's the net fee historically? That is the last one, 55,500. So keep that constant historically. Then also the user. So said I'm going to work like a lazy guy. Just copy and put them here. Okay, so actual users, what did we do here? Okay, so we call off from the historical. Also the growth, that will give us the actual. Okay, seems to be growing the same range. So for now, let's still keep that. Let's still keep that growth. Okay, then how do you do the forecast? I think we just call them up directly. So net fee, then users. Then we have the churn rates. So the churn rates for that. Call that up. So linked sales time. Let me see. So our fee. All right, so let me do another lazy work. I'm going to copy this our users schedule. Let's paste it, insert it here. Right, new users. So just move these guys to these guys. Please, before you work as a lazy modeler, please be sure and always recheck to be sure that the right thing is being done. All right, don't be too sure. It's always good you recheck. So in the ending balance, I think this should be coming from here. Yes. So it's always good. Cross check, 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 check. Be sure that you're getting what ought to be getting. Okay. So fine. Then I can do the revenue calculation for this. So historically, I think they just multiply the net fee by the users. Simple. So I need to call up my membership income. Up my membership income directly. just copy down my formula. I think that should give us, okay, that should be, yeah, root 76. Root 76 here. Is it the same thing? Okay, that's correct. Copy that across. Okay, now let me update, then let me go straight to our revenue. This time I want to just work very lazy, but it seems I cannot. That lazy work will not fly this time. Okay, so these are our membership monthly revenue. Okay. Then we need our net fee and also our users. That will give us revenue from this guy. So the fees in USD, our users, then our currency, the model currency. Okay, so our net fee will be the forecast net fee. Let me come and see if I can work lazy. Copy this formula and paste it. So if my period is equal to 1, it should give me the actual fee. If not, it should give me, in fact, it's supposed not to delete that because it's still referring to the price factor here. So if my forecast flag is equal to actual, for the actual, it should give us the actual net fee. If not, it should give us the forecast net fee multiplied by the inflation factor. The pricing inflation factor, yes. So for the users, we just link this. And for our total, net fee multiplied by users, then divided by 1,000. We have this. Okay. So always good to check that everything is working well and giving us what we need. All right. So that's for the monthly one. For the monthly one, then we also need for the second revenue stream, which is HANA. So I think they have a similar thing, right? So aside the fact that more users in the first of January, the same thing in the next January, then we have just few users being added, right, in each period, which also keeps rolling. So that this also depends on the level of granularity we need, but I think we can just replicate this guy. Let's just recreate and call this HANA, right? Update my call up. That'll be 78. 78. 78. Net fee, is that correct? 99. Okay, yes. Then the users 100. The membership income. So let me check. 27. Is that correct? Okay, yes, that's correct. Track that. Now for the forecasts, come to my input. I just replicate both of them. Just replicate everything here. Put it in here, and this is for the HANA. Okay. So the actual users. Okay. So for the growth might seem a bit different from the other one because every January we expect that to So I think there's a way we actually model all these recurring type of users, right? But for the purpose of this one, I think we can keep it simple, right? So what I'm going to do is, so this is September, right? And what do they have in September previous period? Yeah, we just link that and let everything fit itself. But with that, let's check without work. So without work, so we're saying they will jump from. So let's look at this critically. So in January, so they will move from 299 to this, so which I don't think that will work, right? Because that's really way too high. Divided by 2, divided by 3. So which these are still inputs, by the way. So can still do our rough work inside here. So 3 points. So 334. Yeah, I think let's go with this. We can always do our update later, at least for the setup of our model build. So forecast net fee. It's net fee. So let's change, sorry, referencing to the right column. Yeah, that's very good. So now let's look at our net fee for the annual. What's the value? So which is quite different. Right, the last value 102. Okay, that should flow in. So 102. Then the users. The users and our churn rate. Churn rates. Okay. Yes. So let's see. So this guy is still working. This is working. The users, expect this to flow in like this. Then there's now problem in here. So after this period, yeah, so because each period the value seems to be reducing, right? That's causing a negative impact. So I think I was expecting this because the flow will be different. I was expecting this to happen. So the flow will be different because it's an annual recurring one. Okay. So let's check out that way. So this will be different from the initial one. So let me check what do we need to do. So it should not be like what we've done in the previous one. So first let's change the name. Add new users, and recurring users. New and recurring users. So that's what that should be. Okay, so here, because this is actually not correct. Let me look at a way to properly lay this out. So I'm open to you guys' suggestion as well. That method will not work for us in here. Because let me check. Yeah, so because this is definitely not correct. So 280 in here. So it's not as if the 270 is going out. So for the historical, it should not be negative. So it should not be negative. You should just give the actual guys that are coming in. Okay, so actual guys that are coming in. Let me see something. Minus previous, minus the opening balance. So let me see. Okay, you know what? I think let's use, so I'm just going to call these changes. I'm going to call these changes. Wait, I think, no. Let me think through this. Guy, I'm also open to your suggestion. So because this is actually not giving a true color, because it's not as if 270 users left here, right? Because it's annual basis. So that's what is happening. So what do you think we should do? Let me hear from you guys. So I said historically, yeah, that will work. Well, so it's not because they are losing these new guys. It's just in because they are all on HANA basis. Because once someone commits, right, not as if they will be going at least that they are committed in that 12 months. So any churn rates we want to even consider should be on annual basis. You get? Well, yeah, let's check. Does this make sense? So now that's what this will happen. We can move from 41 to 82 in this period. Because I'm open to your thought as well. So let's think through this. Or the other thing, at least, just to not worry ourselves. Let's just remove this. Let's remove the schedule and just link directly because we expect them to just be the ending users at that particular period, and because of the recurring one. Yeah, we can apply a churn rate which will be on annual basis, but do we really need to disturb our brain since we've kind of make adjustments to the growth here and what the figures look like. So I think we can just link that directly and we can have this. So this is annual. Okay, so historically, I think this is fine. Then forecasts seems to be on the good side, right? And yep. So I think we've completed our revenue. And I hope here maybe I can just create like revenue summary. Let's call this. I'll call this revenue. This is our summary, right? Your transaction fee income, then subscription, monthly revenue, subscription annual revenue, right? I can have my total revenue. right? So they're all linked. And yes, so we have our revenue calculated already, and I can link this straight into my financial statement. So membership, subscription. So membership and subscription. In fact, no. So inside our summary here, I think we just stick to what we have up here. So which will be membership and fee. We've broken down that membership into two, so I just need to add them back here. And transaction. So for membership, that will be the monthly membership revenue plus the annual membership revenue. Then for the fee income, transaction fee income, and that will flow in like that. Okay, so there's also a good way of including a check. So I'll put a check and said historical revenue match with revenue in calculations. So it's always good. You also create things like that. So I'm saying equal to if my actual flag, right? No, so equal to if so let's call up our revenue. Let's call up the historical revenue. So I'm going to call the historical revenue call up. Okay. So it's always good you create checks like this. Checks are very, very good. Trust me. So my historical total revenue, that should be in row what? In row 9. Just change this to row my index to 9. Then let me divide that, divided by divided by 1,000. So I'm saying, then I create my checks. If this my revenue, right, minus this revenue, I need to put both of them in the brackets. If they are less than our tolerance, it should give us 0. If not, it should give us 1. Then multiply both of them by the actual flag. So basically, we are saying you should only calculate for actual period. Copy this check formats, put that here. In fact, check should do, so this should be, so instead of error, this should be alert. So it should not give us a, so I have this. Okay, then the total, which I will link to. Okay, so we have this, and I can come to my admin under my checks. So we have the second check. So basically what we are saying is, irrespective of anything you do, right, please do not change. We are not changing the client data, right? We are only focusing on the forecast. So this for the alerts, right? Oh, no, I think I connected that to the wrong. So let me check this. How come we did not link here? Okay, yes, this should come in here. Then this also should be the one for the alert, not error. Okay, so the historical check come in here, link that, and we should have something like this. So let's check if that is correct or not. So if I decide to delete one of the revenue, expect, do we have alerts coming up? What's happening? I expect that should give us Oh, okay. So you know what's so it should be the total revenue. So if I delete the total revenue, then that should give us alerts, right? So historical revenue match with, I think it should state it does not match. So historical revenue does not match with revenue calculation. So things like that is always good. It creates those checks, right? Right. So I'm sure you can see that it is getting really interesting. So let's link our revenue. Let's link them up here. On this, and we still expect our what? We expect our balance sheet to be balanced despite having only this revenue. Right? So you can see how interesting it is. And trust me, it will only get more interesting as we go on. So for today, I think we should call it a session, right? We've done a whole lot, and it seems as if we've not done anything. And that's one interesting about building operational model. You can't believe that the last 2 hours, all we've been doing is just revenue only. The past 2 hours plus, right? So you do a lot, but it look as if you've not done anything. So right, so in fact, there are sums where you will see only revenue taking almost 1,000 of rows. Trust me, the level of granularity you just have to build in it, right? And step by step, everything must be properly laid out. You can't put too many into one. Just break it down so that it's easy for someone to look through and be able to follow through what you've done. That's how interesting this can be. So yes, let's call it a session here today. I will share I will upload the recording on my YouTube channel. Let me go there so that you guys can see. So immediately after the session, once the recording is ready, I'll upload it directly on my YouTube channel, so you guys can just go ahead and check that out. Well, there's no need of sending an email, so I will automatically upload that after the session, so you can see it. My channel, just type my name, Budele Victor. You will see my channel there. You can see different playlists. So for this one, which is mentorship program, okay. So you can see the so I've uploaded one, then I will upload the second one and just be uploading everything under this playlist as we go on, right? So yes, thank you everyone, and I hope we had a nice time together today while building this model together. So this is the reality of how we build our model. So I just go like 5 minutes. If you have any question, you can just raise your hand. I will grant you permission to speak, or if you prefer to type in the chat box, which would be the best option for we end the session. So thank you everyone, and let's make sure we enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'll just look out for the recording. I will share that with us immediately after the session.